his hay. The ox is a patient beast, but finally he protested, "Dog, if you wanted to eat my dinner, I would have no objection, but you will neither eat it yourself nor let me enjoy it, which strikes me as a very churlish way to act." Moral: some begrudge others what they cannot enjoy themselves. The wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf had been lurking near a flock of sheep for several days, but so vigilant had been the shepherd in guarding his animals that the wolf was becoming desperate. Then one day the wolf found a sheepskin that had been thrown away. Quickly he slipped it over his own hide and made his way among the flock of grazing sheep. Even the shepherd was deceived by the ruse, and when night came the wolf in his disguise was shut up with the sheep in the fold. But that evening the shepherd, wanting something for his supper, went down to the fold, and, reaching in, seized the first animal he came to. Mistaking the wolf for a sheep, the shepherd killed him on the spot. Moral: appearances often are deceiving. The Fox and the Crow. A fox once saw a crow fly off with a piece of cheese in its beak and settle on a branch of a tree. "That's for me, as I am a fox," he said, and he walked up to the foot of the tree. "Good day, Mistress Crow," he cried. "How well you are looking today! How glossy your feathers, how bright your eye! I feel sure your voice must surpass that of other birds, just as your figure does. Let me hear but one song from you, that I may greet you as the Queen of Birds." The crow lifted up her head and began to caw her best, but the moment she opened her mouth, the piece of cheese fell to the ground, only to be snapped up by the fox. "That will do," said he. "That was all I wanted." Moral: never trust a flatterer. The Gardener and his Dog. The gardener was drawing water at the well to water his garden plants. His little dog was jumping and barking on the well curb until he lost his balance and fell in. Hearing the splash, the gardener quickly drew off his clothes and descended into the well to rescue his dog. Just as he was bringing the struggling and slippery animal to the top, the ungrateful wretch bit his master's hand. "Why, you little monster!" exclaimed the gardener. "If that is your idea of gratitude to a master who feeds you and pets you and treats you kindly, then pull yourself out of the well." With that he dropped the dog right back into the well again. Moral: don't bite the hand that feeds you. The Angler and the Little Fish. An angler, after a long day's toil, had nothing to show for his pains but one small fish. As he was taking the perch off the hook, the fish spoke. "Spare me, good fisherman. I am so small that I will make you but a sorry meal. Throw me back into the river, and later, when I am grown bigger and worth eating, you may come here and catch me again." "No, no," said the wary angler. "I have you now, but if you once get back into the water, your tune will be 'Catch me if you can.'" Moral: beware the promises of a desperate man. The Fawn and her Mother. One day in the forest a fawn was browsing among some ferns with her mother. It was peaceful there in the shelter of the forest growth. Suddenly from a distance came the sound of baying hounds. The mother deer stood stock still and began to tremble. "Mother," said the fawn, "you are bigger than a dog, and swifter of foot, and better winded, and you have horns with which to defend yourself. Why are you so afraid of the hounds?" The mother smiled and said, "All this, my child, I know full well, but no sooner do I hear a dog bark than somehow or other my heels take me off as fast as they can carry me." Moral: there is no arguing a coward into courage. The Milkmaid and her Pail. A milkmaid was on her way to market, carrying a pail of milk on the top of her head. As she walked along the road in the early morning, she began to turn over in her mind what she would do with the money she would receive for the milk. "I shall buy some hens from a neighbor," she said to herself, "and they will lay eggs every day, which I shall sell to the pastor's wife. And with the egg money I'll buy myself a new frock and ribbon. Green they shall be, for green becomes my complexion best. And in this lovely green gown I will go to the fair. All the young men will strive to have me for a partner. I shall pretend I do not see them. When they become too insistent, I shall disdainfully toss my head, like this." As the milkmaid spoke, she tossed her head back, and down came the pail of milk, spilling all over the ground. And so all her imaginary happiness vanished, and nothing was left but an empty pail and the promise of a scolding when she returned home. Moral: do not count your chickens before they are hatched. The Ant and the Grasshopper. In a field one summer's day a grasshopper was hopping about, chirping and singing to its heart's content. An ant passed by, struggling to carry an ear of corn to its nest. "Why not come and chat with me, instead of toiling and moiling in that way?" asked the grasshopper. "I am helping to lay up food for winter, and recommend you do the same," replied the ant. "Why bother about winter?" said the grasshopper. "We have plenty of food at present." But the ant went on its way and continued its toil. When the winter came, the grasshopper had no food, and found itself dying of hunger, while it saw the ants distributing among themselves the corn and grain they had collected in the summer. Moral: prepare for the days of necessity. The Mice in Council. For many years the mice had been living in constant dread of their enemy, the cat. It was decided to call a meeting to determine the best means of handling the situation. Many plans were discussed and rejected. At last a young mouse got up. "I propose," said he, looking very important, "that a bell be hung around the cat's neck. Then, whenever the cat approaches, we shall always have notice of her presence, and so be able to escape." The young mouse sat down amidst tremendous applause. The suggestion was put to a motion, and passed almost unanimously. But then an old mouse, who had sat silent all the while, rose to his feet and said, "My friends, it takes a young mouse to think of a plan so ingenious and yet so simple. With a bell about the cat's neck to warn us, we shall all be safe. I have but one brief question to put to the supporters of the plan. Which one of you is going to put the bell on the cat?" Moral: it is one thing to propose, another to execute. The Gnat and the Bull. Once there was a silly gnat who kept buzzing about the head of a bull. Finally he settled himself down upon one of the bull's horns. "Pardon me, Mr. Bull," he said, "if I am inconveniencing you. If my weight in any way is burdensome to you, pray say so, and I will be off in a moment."
"Oh, never trouble your head about that," replied the bull. "It is all the same to me whether you go or stay. To tell the truth, I was not even aware that you were there."
Moral: the smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. The Fox and the Goat. A fox had the misfortune to fall into a well from which, try as he might, he could not escape. Just as he was beginning to be worried, a goat came along, intent on quenching his thirst. "Why, friend Fox, what are you doing down there?" he cried. "Do you mean to say you haven't heard about the great drought, friend Goat?" the fox said. "Just as soon as I heard, I jumped down here where the water is plentiful. I would advise you to come down too. It is the best water I have ever tasted. I have drunk so much that I can scarcely move." When the goat heard this, he leapt into the well without any more ado. The fox immediately jumped onto the goat's back, and using her long horns he was able to scramble out of the well to safety. Then he called down to the unhappy goat the following advice: "The next time, friend Goat, be sure to look before you leap." Moral: it is not safe to trust the advice of a man in difficulties. The Ass Carrying Salt. The rumor reached a certain huckster who owned an ass that salt was to be had cheap at the seaside. So he and the ass proceeded down to the shore to buy some. There he loaded his poor beast with as much as he could bear, and started for home. As they were passing a slippery ledge of rock, the sorely laden ass fell into the stream below. The water melted the salt, thus relieving the beast of his burden. Gaining the bank with ease, he pursued his journey homeward, light in body and in spirit. The huckster, nothing daunted, set out again for the seashore for a load of salt. He piled an even heavier burden upon the ass. On their return, as they crossed the stream into which the ass previously had fallen by accident, this time he fell down on purpose. As before, the water dissolved the salt and freed him from his load. Very much provoked by his loss, the master began to think how he could cure the animal of his tricks. So, on the next journey to the sea-coast, he freighted the ass with a load of sponges. When they arrived at the stream, as before, the beast was up to his old tricks once more. No sooner was he in the river than the sponges became soaked with water, and instead of lightening his burden, he found, as he staggered homeward, that he had more than doubled the weight of it. Moral: an old trick may be played once too often. The Fox and the Grapes. Mr. Fox was just about famished, and thirsty too, when he stole into a vineyard where the sun-ripened grapes were hanging up on a trellis in a tempting show, but too high for him to reach. He took a run and a jump, snapping